Let's talk about the Northeast State, because we mentioned at the beginning of the season it looked like it would have been perhaps a 3-horse race. It looks like a 2-horse race now. You've got New Haven battling East Noble really at the top. Both teams 3-0 in the conference. Neither of them played DeKalb, so they didn't get a forfeit. They just don't have a game on the schedule. What do you look at in terms of this matchup? Because it did turn into a 2-horse race with Leo kind of dropping out of that contention early on.
Yeah, Week 8's the big showdown for them. A week from Friday will be East Noble and New Haven for the NE8 championship, and I expect a lot of fireworks in that game. Both teams can put up a lot of points. The defenses have been pretty sound, so which defense is able to slow the other offense down? I think that's really what it's going to come down to. And of course, both teams have games on Friday. And coaches, I'm sure, are stressing, we need to get through, Week 7 before we worry about Week 8. But all eyes at this point are on that Week 8 game between East Noble and New Haven.
When you look at the entire standings of this conference, are you surprised that it isn't more definitive in terms of after 1 and 2? I mean, I think we thought there were going to be a big line drawn in the sand after that, but I mean, Leo's obviously a pretty solid team. Belmont's 2-2. Columbia City has won some games. You just never really know what's going to happen. You take a look at DeKalb with all they've gone through. They put a beating on last week.
Yeah,
and they beat Huntington North, and Huntington North put a beating on Belmont the week before. It's like you just don't know who in the middle of that conference is going to beat someone in the bottom half, or who in the bottom half can beat somebody in the middle half. It's really mixed up.
Yeah, I think if you take the first two teams out, it's a very competitive conference. I think the other 6. You can make anybody can win any given week. I think maybe Norwell struggles obviously, but everybody else could beat anybody else except for those top 2 teams. But yeah, you mentioned Huntington North. They surprise and beat Belmont. Then you're thinking, okay, Huntington North should be able to handle DeKalb, and DeKalb stomps them. So just a lot of interchangeable parts and stuff in that 3 to 8 range in the NE8.
Well, Belmont won a share of the conference championship last season. They've got a decent offensive line like they do every year. Bucky Gutierrez has been at quarterback for a while now. Caleb Hankinson obviously a stud at the running back position. When you go into this week for New Haven, they've got Belmont. How do you make sure you don't overlook a game? Because we've seen New Haven maybe have a tendency to do that, look ahead, maybe stumble when you don't expect them to. I get the feeling that Jim Rowland has his team ready to roll. I get the feeling that that's not going to be the case this year. How do you make sure that isn't the case on Friday night? Because Belmont has championship experience on that roster.
Yeah, I think this week we learn another lesson about New Haven, because we were saying, well, they can't win big games, and they've been able to do that earlier in the season. Now, is this team focused on Week 7 and beating an inferior team before it starts worrying about East Noble? Or is it looking ahead? So I think it's that team, New Haven, has answered all the questions we've had thus far through Week 7. But here's a little bit of a trap game, because Belmont, when they're on, can be very competitive. You mentioned Grant Gutierrez and guys like that, and Caleb Hankinson, capable players. But do they have enough to stay up with New Haven? If New Haven's on, I'd say no.
Are you surprised that it is just the 2 that Leo hasn't been able to hang with them, or was it because of all the youth we talked about coming into the season that maybe it wasn't that big of a surprise? Maybe it's a year where Leo rebuilds and is back again next year as a conference championship contender.
Yeah, Leo will be back. They just lost so much and stuff, and we just didn't know about Leo because they're so automatic. Every year they're going to have 8-9 wins, and they're not giving up a lot of points. And this year was just an enigma, and they did struggle because they had to replace so much. And I think they lose back-to-back games by big margins, which is very un-Leo-like. So all of a sudden, a lot of people are like, well, Leo's just down in the dumps, but it's the 3rd best team in that conference, and New Haven and East Noble are tremendously good. Leo will be back next year. They'll be fine, and they're still going to win 6 or 7 games, which shows you where they're at as a program. When we talk about a down Leo team, could very well win 7 games.